A father took care of his paralyzed daughter for 25 years until one day, noticing something strange, he installed cameras in his house. What he discovered left him chilled. Ivan woke up suddenly to the sound of the alarm clock. As he sat on the bed, he felt his bones crackle, reminding him he was already 65 years old. Nevertheless, he didn't let age hinder him. After getting ready and washing his face, he went to the next room to wake up his daughter, Flavia, who was 35 years old. Flavia hasn't been able to move her legs since a very serious accident at the age of 10. Ivan takes care of her with great affection. Since that day, he began waking Flavia by gently shaking her shoulder. She grumbled a bit and slowly opened her eyes. There was a childlike expression on her face, as if she were still 10 years old. Ivan helped Flavia sit up in her wheelchair, which was beside the bed, and took her to the bathroom. After assisting her in cleaning up and getting dressed, he took her to the kitchen for breakfast. Ivan had developed a careful routine for taking care of Flavia over the years. He knew well how to move Flavia without hurting her and how to feed her calmly, spoon-feeding her. While having breakfast, Ivan noticed something different. A sparkle in Flavia's eyes, as if she wanted to smile. Suddenly, he saw Flavia's toes move slightly under the table. It was a small movement, but Ivan was sure of what he saw. After breakfast, Ivan took Flavia outside to catch some morning sun, something they did every day. They enjoyed walking in the garden and breathing the fresh air. But that day, Ivan kept an eye on Flavia, looking for more strange signs. He saw Flavia's hand fingers move a little and an almost imperceptible change in how she sat. At night, after putting Flavia to bed, Ivan stayed awake thinking. He began to wonder if it was possible that Flavia wasn't really paralyzed. Had she been pretending all this time? Ivan scolded himself for thinking that way, but the doubt was already in his head. Ivan woke up early as he did every day, even feeling the weight of his 65 years and the common aches of that age. But the body pains were nothing compared to the sadness he felt inside. Ivan had been living alone with his daughter, Flavia, since a car accident took the lives of his wife and another daughter. Since the accident, Ivan had devoted himself entirely to taking care of Flavia, who had very serious injuries and couldn't move her legs anymore. Doctors ran many tests on Flavia and said she would never walk again. Ivan had no doubts that the doctors were right, but something inside him told him to keep an eye out, as something seemed strange. Ivan went to Flavia's room to start another day taking care of her, but this day wouldn't be like the others. Ivan knew his daughter very well and knew how to interpret every look and gesture of hers. So, when he saw a different sparkle in her eyes and a slight movement in her toes, he knew something important was happening. Ivan felt the cold ceramic floor under his feet as he went to the bathroom for his morning hygiene. He moved slowly, feeling the weight of the years. Then he went to Flavia's room to wake her up and start the long process of lifting her, giving her a bath, and dressing her, a routine he had been following for many years. "Good morning, Flavia," said Ivan, trying to sound happy as he opened the curtains to let the light in. Flavia grumbled, shielding her eyes from the brightness. Her hair was messy, and the room smelled bad because of the dirty sheets. He sighed, put Flavia in the wheelchair, and took her to the bathroom. There, he carefully took off her clothes, trying not to look too much at his daughter's injured body, and put her in the shower. Flavia groaned when the hot water touched her skin. "Don't cry, we're almost done," Ivan reassured her. After rinsing her off and combing her hair gently, a result of years of practice, Flavia looked distant, murmuring words that Ivan didn't understand. He put her in the chair again and took her to the kitchen, where he fed her carefully, wiping her mouth when needed. It was a routine done with love, but Ivan had doubts growing inside him. After leaving Flavia watching TV in the living room, Ivan went to his room and took out some old boxes filled with photos, newspaper clippings, and articles about the accident that happened 25 years ago. He wanted to find something that could confirm or alleviate his suspicions. Seeing the photos of his deceased wife and daughter brought him much sadness, but among the memories, He found the newspaper clipping of the accident. A car crashing into a truck, with his wife driving and Flavia in the back seat. She survived but was paralyzed. Reliving the pain of those moments in the hospital and Flavia's tears, Ivan wondered why he doubted now, after so long. Maybe it was just fatigue. He put everything away and went to have lunch with Flavia, feeding her as he always did. Then he put her to bed to rest and went to lie down too, feeling a strong headache. After a nap that lasted until the afternoon, Ivan went to Flavia's room and was startled not to find her there. The wheelchair was also gone. Breathless, he ran through the house, calling out for her, until he found Flavia in the backyard, sitting, looking at the plants. "Flavia, what are you doing here?" Ivan asked nervously. Flavia was startled by the question, looking confused at Ivan and trying to say something that didn't make sense. Ivan realized that Flavia didn't seem concerned about being out of bed. After calming down, Ivan took Flavia inside without saying anything and put her in front of the TV, where she stayed for the rest of the day. Ivan spent the night awake with what had happened. He couldn't stop thinking that maybe Flavia had been scared to be found. Was Flavia pretending her condition all this time? How could Ivan get this doubt out of his head? The next morning, Ivan took action. He left Flavia with the nurse who came to help a few times a week and went shopping. He bought small hidden cameras that he could place around the house to observe Flavia when he wasn't around. Ivan felt bad for suspecting his daughter, but he needed to know the truth. At night, with Flavia already asleep, he installed the hidden cameras, pointing them at the main rooms of the house, and connected them to a tablet in his room. This way, he could see everything without Flavia noticing. Ivan went to bed anxious, hoping to discover what he wanted to know so badly the next morning. Ivan woke up anxious and went straight to check the tablet. He quickly glanced through the recordings of the night and didn't see anything strange. Flavia was still in bed, motionless. As usual, Ivan calmed down a bit, thinking he might be paranoid. After breakfast, he went to wake up Flavia, who was lying on her back staring at the ceiling. "Good morning, Flavia, time to get up," Ivan said, opening the curtains. Flavia blinked, confused by the light, and murmured a few words. Ivan helped her sit in the wheelchair and took her to the bathroom to wash up. He didn't notice anything different while giving her a bath and dressing her. She seemed as passive and distant as always. After the bath, he took her to the kitchen, gave her breakfast, and after wiping her mouth, he placed her in front of the television. He returned to his room to check the cameras, feeling a little foolish for suspecting his own daughter, but he needed to be sure. To his surprise, the cameras showed something unbelievable. As soon as Ivan left, Flavia stopped murmuring, and her face changed to a clear and conscious expression. She managed to get up with effort and walked to the bathroom, touching her face and hair in the mirror, as if assessing herself, before returning to the chair and resuming her distant expression, just in time for Ivan's return. Ivan was shocked and confused. His suspicions were real. Flavia had been deceiving him all this time. Why? How long had this been going on? Did Flavia pretend to be paralyzed since the accident, or did it start later? Ivan was consumed by anger, confusion, and sadness. He thought about lighting a cigarette to calm down, even though he had quit smoking years ago. He needed more evidence before confronting Flavia. He spent the day watching the tablet, seeing Flavia do things she shouldn't be able to, like stretching her legs, standing near the refrigerator, and leaning on furniture to walk. Ivan couldn't believe he had spent 25 years taking care of Flavia, thinking she couldn't walk, when in fact she could. He felt deceived and began to wonder if Flavia had been laughing at him all this time. That night, after Ivan put Flavia to bed, he stayed awake restless, thinking about what to do. Part of him wanted to confront Flavia right away and demand an explanation, but his rational side advised him to be cautious and gather more evidence before any confrontation. He even thought about talking to the lawyer the next morning. Ivan's anger subsided, giving way to sadness. He wondered how things had come to this point, how his daughter had changed so much to the point of maintaining such a big lie for so long. He remembered Flavia as a little girl, smiling and full of energy. What had made the innocent girl turn into this woman who lied? Ivan decided to change his approach. Instead of looking for more lies, he would try to understand what led Flavia to pretend to be paralyzed. He treated Flavia more kindly, trying to see beyond the false disability. During lunch, he tried to talk to Flavia, asking how she felt and if she needed anything. Flavia only mumbled, making no sense, but Ivan thought he saw sadness in her eyes. After lunch, instead of putting her in front of the TV, Ivan took Flavia outside to enjoy some sunshine together. He told stories of when Flavia was a child, of the games they played, and her contagious laughter. He talked about her mother and how much he loved her. Flavia didn't say anything, but a tear rolled down her face. At night, Ivan carefully put Flavia to bed, covered her gently, and turned off the light. He left the tablet on, but he was no longer interested in the recordings. What he wanted was to reconnect with Flavia. In the following days, Ivan dedicated more time to being with Flavia, taking her for walks in the park, reading children's stories, and showing her old photos. He noticed Flavia becoming more present and active. One day, while looking at a photo album, Flavia touched a picture of them together and murmured, "Mom, Dad." Ivan was moved. It was the first time Flavia had said something coherent in years. With tears in his eyes, he hugged Flavia, saying, "I love you." In that moment, Ivan realized that exposing the lie wasn't the most important thing, but rather rebuilding the relationship with his daughter. Over time, he knew that Flavia would open up and tell the truth about her supposed paralysis, but that could wait. For now, he just wanted to enjoy his daughter's company for the first time in years. Ivan felt hopeful. Weeks passed, and the connection between Ivan and Flavia grew, slowly but steadily. Flavia became more communicative and expressive in her father's presence, and she even started speaking a few words again. Ivan stopped checking the recordings of the hidden cameras, feeling that it wasn't right to spy on Flavia like that. He wanted to rebuild trust between them, so he started interacting more directly with her without needing cameras. One morning, after breakfast, Ivan took Flavia to the backyard to enjoy the spring sun. The sky was clear, and the birds were singing. "What a beautiful day, isn't it, daughter?" Ivan said. Flavia opened her eyes and murmured something that Ivan didn't understand. He knew her recovery would take time and that he needed to be patient. When they returned inside, passing by the mirror, Flavia looked at her reflection and seemed more attentive. "You look great, Flavia," Ivan said, trying to cheer her up, and mentioned how her hair was still as unruly as in childhood. Flavia looked at him and gave a small smile, touching Ivan deeply. After lunch, Ivan was taking Flavia to her room to rest, but she held onto his arm and said, "Daddy," in a weak voice. Ivan was very moved because it had been years since she had called him that. "What is it, daughter?" he asked. Flavia pointed to the window, wanting to go back to the garden. Ivan took her outside, near the rose bushes, and told her to call him if she needed anything, before going to hang the laundry on the clothesline. Suddenly, Ivan heard a noise coming from the backyard and ran, fearing that Flavia had fallen. But what he saw surprised him. Flavia was standing, leaning against the wall, with the wheelchair fallen beside her. It seemed like she had tried to walk and stumbled. When she saw Ivan, Flavia looked scared. "Daughter, can you walk?" Ivan asked, incredulous. Flavia didn't respond. Her legs were trembling from the effort of standing. Flavia fell to the ground, and Ivan rushed to help her, making her sit down. Flavia avoided looking into his eyes, and her lip trembled. "Don't worry, I'm not angry," Ivan reassured her. "But I need you to explain what's going on." Flavia shook her head, refusing to look at him. "Please, Flavia, I know you lied to me about your paralysis all these years. I need to understand why." Flavia then began to cry, and Ivan comforted her by hugging her, like when she was younger. After calming down, Flavia apologized and began to tell her story. She said that after the accident that killed her mother, she woke up in the hospital unable to move. The doctors said she could improve, but months passed with no progress. Flavia became depressed about being so limited and hated the pity other children felt for her. One day, she discovered she could move her toes, and in secret, she began to train her legs until she could stand and walk a little. But being paraplegic had already become a part of who she was, bringing her attention and avoiding school and socialization. Even after being discharged, Flavia continued pretending to be disabled. The lie started as something temporary but became permanent. She felt guilty for deceiving Ivan, but she was afraid to tell the truth. Ivan listened in shock as Flavia finished. He said she should have told him earlier, but the important thing was that now he knew the truth and would help. Flavia cried in relief and hugged him tightly. Ivan comforted her, promising to overcome this situation together. That night, after dinner, they talked more. Ivan reaffirmed his love and understanding, without resentment. Flavia shared more about her fears and frustrations. Ivan promised to schedule an appointment with a psychologist and a physiotherapist to help Flavia regain strength and stability in her legs. The next day, Ivan scheduled an appointment with Dr. Alice, a renowned psychologist, for the afternoon and scheduled physiotherapy sessions 3 times a week for Flavia, with a specialized rehabilitation therapist. Flavia seemed nervous when informed about the appointments but agreed to go after breakfast. Ivan and Flavia talked. Ivan said he understood Flavia's fear of this big change, but emphasized that it was essential to be strong and dedicated to overcoming the lies and limitations Flavia had created for herself. Telling the truth was the hardest step. Ivan comforted, "Now I'm here to support you in everything. You're not alone." Flavia tearfully thanked him and expressed her desire to change. "I want to try. I can't stand living hidden anymore," she said. It was a poignant moment for Flavia, going out for the first time without needing to pretend, with her hands trembling with anxiety and emotion. Ivan reassured her and helped her settle in the car, ensuring that Dr. Angela was very understanding. On the way, Flavia looked outside, fascinated by everything she saw, as if it were a new discovery. Arriving at the appointment, they were greeted by Dr. Angela, who made them feel at home. She had a gentle and welcoming demeanor. "Nice to meet you, Flavia," she said. "Here you can feel safe to speak." Flavia sat down, still shy, but the psychologist's smile made her feel more at ease. Dr. Angela explained that the space was safe and non-judgmental, a place where Flavia could share her feelings openly. "Here we can talk about anything you're feeling. Okay?" Dr. Angela asked, and Flavia, feeling more comfortable, agreed. Dr. Angela immediately became a source of trust. During the long session of almost 2 hours, Flavia shared her feelings of shame, fear, and insecurity, explaining how these feelings led her to pretend to be disabled and how it created a difficult cycle to break. The psychologist listened attentively, asking relevant questions and emphasizing that despite the mistakes, it was essential not to self-criticize too much. Now was the time to heal and rediscover oneself. Ivan also participated, receiving guidance on how to support Flavia without pressuring her too much. Ivan promised his unconditional support. In the end, Dr. Angela praised their progress for opening up, and they scheduled weekly appointments. Flavia felt renewed after this conversation. "It wasn't as hard as I thought," Ivan said on the way home. Flavia agreed, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long time. After lunch, they went to Flavia's first physiotherapy session with Marcelo. The office had various equipment to assist in exercising each part of the body. Marcelo, the physiotherapist, was a strong and energetic man, but very friendly. He conducted a complete examination of Flavia, noting muscle atrophy due to lack of use, but nothing that couldn't be improved with training. They started with light stretching and strengthening exercises. Flavia got tired quickly, but Marcelo was patient, teaching exercises to do at home as well. Ivan watched proudly as Flavia made the effort, Marcelo suggested increasing protein intake to aid in muscle development. At the end of the session, Flavia was tired but motivated. After the appointment, on the way home, Flavia was excited, telling her father about the exercises. The therapist said that soon I'll be able to stand without trembling and maybe even start walking a little, she said to Ivan, who was very happy to see his daughter so motivated. They knew the journey would be long, but they were on the right path. That night, Flavia went to bed early, exhausted. Ivan called Mrs. Rosalia, a nurse who had helped in the past, to say that they would no longer need her services. She was surprised by the news but accepted the decision. For Ivan, it was time for Flavia to become more independent, leaving behind another part of the past. In the following days, Flavia showed progress, managing to stand and take a few steps. The psychologist also noticed improvements in Flavia's mood and self-esteem. However, there were moments of frustration. After a challenging physiotherapy session, Flavia returned home irritated and locked herself in her room. The next day, Ivan, worried, found Flavia's room empty. After searching everywhere, he called the police. The police began the search, and Ivan spent the night anxious. Fortunately, Flavia was found disoriented but safe, near a square. Upon reuniting, Flavia apologized for running away. Ivan hugged her, relieved. "Don't worry, we'll figure everything out together," Ivan said to Flavia. Ivan realized he needed to help Flavia gain more confidence and autonomy. He took her to public places to help her get used to the outside environment and manage her anxiety. Gradually, Flavia began to feel more comfortable in the presence of other people and better manage her emotions. Dr. Angela helped Flavia see that setbacks are part of recovery. She promised to support her always, which gave Flavia a lot of security. Gradually, Flavia adapted to her new situation. Ivan bought a smaller wheelchair to facilitate her outdoor walks, which greatly aided Flavia's recovery. The advances in physiotherapy with Marcelo, introducing weights and elastic bands, were impressive. Flavia could already stand and walk with the walker. Marcelo, seeing the progress, suggested to Ivan that Flavia try walking alone. Ivan, touched, shared the idea with Flavia, who, although nervous, accepted the challenge. In the living room, with space to walk, Ivan held Flavia's hands, encouraging her. Flavia, taking a deep breath, took her first steps with her father's help and gradually gained confidence until she let go of Ivan's hands and walked alone through the room. It was a moment of great emotion and tears for both, celebrating an important milestone. Over time, Flavia became more independent, walking around the house and the yard without needing help. Ivan still accompanied her to therapy sessions, but Flavia was already doing many things on her own. One day, having tea, Flavia told Ivan that she wanted to live alone. Ivan was surprised by the sudden declaration. "You're still recovering and need support," Ivan argued, but Flavia was determined. "I need to try to live for myself. Even now that I can, I don't want to depend on you forever." Flavia was determined to gain autonomy and no longer see herself as a burden, showing her desire to start a new phase of independence. Ivan gently held Flavia's hand, looking into her eyes with a mixture of paternal love and admiration. "Flavia, you have never been and will never be a burden to me. I'm here to support you for as long as you need. But if you feel ready to forge your own path, I want you to know that you have my full support. I'm incredibly proud of you," Ivan said, his voice choked with emotion. They hugged, a hug filled with love and unconditional support. Ivan felt a mix of pride for Flavia's determination and a twinge of sadness at the prospect of seeing her leave after years of struggles and achievements together. The idea of not sharing the day-to-day weighed on his heart. However, he understood that it was essential to allow Flavia to chart her own course and live her life fully. Over the years, Flavia truly became a free bird, as Ivan used to say. Flavia found someone special, got engaged, and was building her own story, full of love and independence. On a particularly quiet night, Ivan had a vivid dream of his deceased wife. In the dream, she hugged him tenderly, smiling with that look of gratitude and love that he remembered so well. She thanked him for everything he had done, expressing her pride in Ivan's strength and dedication as a father. This dream brought Ivan a sense of peace and closure. It was as if, somehow, he received the approval he had always sought, a sign that despite the challenges and uncertainties, he had followed the right path in raising Flavia with so much love and dedication. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to leave your opinion about the story below. My friends, we've reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed the story, leave your like, share, and if you're not subscribed yet, I ask you to subscribe to our channel, and until the next video, may God bless you.